It's the final week of August here at the Stafford Motor Speedway, and that means one thing, Bonssa Tufa. Back to school night for the kids here in the region and here at the racetrack, sponsored by Maybury Material Handling.
It's what the kids have been waiting for all summer long, to go back to school. I remember when I was excited to go back to school way back when, but yes, the kids are back for school, but back on the front stretch as well for two big wheel races. It's the first kids night we've had since the end of May, just because Mother Nature has not been on our side when we hold these events. So the kids are going to put on a show in front of us on the front straightaway while our 5 weekly divisions do the same thing.
And there's some of the more competitive races we see all year.
Yeah, they pedal hard from start to finish, and we've had a couple photo finishes before where we've seen via video who actually came out on top. So you might see more of that tomorrow night.
It's going to be fun. A couple of those big wheel races on tap. Last weekend, there was a couple of late model races here on the racetrack and some drivers that haven't been in victory lane a whole lot back in Napa Victory Lane.
First off, Cliff Saunders in the first late model feature had a great battle with Tom Butler, who those two go way back, especially when Cliff first started racing. They were battling for the lead for several laps. Cliff took it, pulled away at the end, ended a 5-year-long drought. Granted, they went a couple years without racing full-time, but both Saunders boys have now won this year, and the 14 had been fast all season. He started off the year with 5 top 5s in a row, so it's not a surprise to see him win. It's just so tough in this division because everybody's so close. The second feature came down to the wire. A last lap pass, Paul Verrecchio Jr. in a caution-free race. Both races went green to checker, but Verrecchio started 11th, came through the field without the aid of a caution, took the lead on the final lap from Bobby Stark III, who had a great run, just fell 1 lap short, and Verrecchio gets his second win of the year. I love watching those in-cars, Kyle, because you see how Paul makes his way every week from 12th, 11th, up to 3rd, up to 2nd, up to 1st, and with no cautions, very impressive. They've been on it basically all season. They had a couple off nights this year, but you're going to have that. Nobody's perfect all season. It does tighten the point battle a little bit from the second feature, but Gambacorta had a good first race as well. Plus, he finished top 5 in both features. So the point lead for Gambacorta up to 22. We'll see if Verrecchio has any way to respond and close that gap.
Ever since Verrecchio got that car midway through last year, he has been a factor more times than not.
He's been fast every week. The equipment matters. No matter how good you are, you're only as good as the car that gives it to you. So when you have a good car, you can really make the most of your talent, your ability, and get in tough spots that you probably couldn't do beforehand, and it makes a big difference.
Speaking of twin features, the SK Light Modifieds have their shot at twin features this week. Of course, one of their features got rained out on Napa SK 5K night earlier this month. They're going to make it up this week.
It's going to be a dandy. I'm excited for it. 2 20-lap features. We saw it earlier this year. They ran 2 features, and guess who won both those races?
Tyler Chapman.
The guy who won last week as well. 6 wins on the year for Tyler Chapman, expanding his point lead almost to 100 points. We talked about the previous week how he came off his worst finish out of the races. He did finish with a 5th. Bounces back, goes 8th to 1st, just like that. But he's going to have a tough task. 2 features starting mid-pack both times. Try to avoid any trouble early on, because that's been the key with the SK Lights. Early trouble. Avoid it. If you can get past all that, you can get up to the front, and it's Tyler Chapman up there every week. We've seen Megan Fuller be consistent with top 10s. Amanda West had a rough night last week because she got caught up in a heat race wreck, but she started in the back and still got a top 15. Really hard to do. Chris Matthews has always been fast. Alex Pearl's fast. Nick Hubby's fast. There's a lot of good cars. You just got to finish all the laps. Now you got 2 20-lappers to work with, so how hard do you go the first race? Because you got 1 more to go at the end of the night.
And for Tyler Chapman, closing in on a milestone, now 2nd on the all-time win list for the division, and only 3 out of the top spot.
Which, oh, by the way, is an active driver in Chris Matthews, who has a win this year. So that'll be a fun little battle. Can Tyler Chapman win 3? Yes. Can Chris Matthews win this year? Of course he can. So as much as Chapman wants to get that record, Chris Matthews has been so good all season, he can extend his mark and pull away from that 41.
And Megan Fuller continues to be the most consistent driver in the division right now.
She had an up and down start to the year, getting caught up in accidents. Now she's, for the most part, avoided trouble. And now we've seen how good that car can get. But she's still not 100% satisfied with that car. So she's still getting top 10s despite not being perfectly happy with the car. Just imagine when the car goes her way.
In the SK Modifieds, the point battle tightened up because of an incident in Turn 2. But first, we'll talk about the winner, the driver of car number 3 for the 3rd time this year in Napa Victory Lane.
Who predicted that at the beginning of the year? Be honest. Wow. First race of the year he won, that was huge. Backed it up with a second about a month and a half later, and now he's back for a third time, Troy Talman. That ties the division lead. He and Di Matteo each have 3 wins, but we still haven't seen someone win 4 in a season since back in 2021. When that 3 car's on, they're unstoppable. They just got to be more consistent with hitting the setup. Some nights he'll be a little bit off and be at the back half of the top 10, but when they hit it, you can expect him up front. So Talman, a big win for him again, 3 wins on the year. In the big picture, Andrew Moeller gets caught up in a multi-car accident in Turn 2, not of his own doing, just got squeezed up into the wall trying to avoid the wreck. Loses a lot of points because Corey Di Matteo finished second. He's got back-to-back podiums. That 11 car was a bit off during the summertime after having such a hot start. I think it's fair to say he's back.
Lost more than half of his championship point lead, and after he won 3 in a row in May, talking about Di Matteo, hadn't talked a whole lot about him, had finishes outside of the top 10, but he's back and maybe at the right time.
Oh, for sure. What better time than with just over a month left in the season? They had some mechanical issues, some gremlins throughout that summertime period, which hampered them a bit, but it seems like they've gotten those all ironed out, and it's between those two. I mean, Mike Christopher Jr. and Michael Jarvis Jr. were up there, but Christopher wrecked in Turn 4 and didn't finish the race, so that hurt him in the point standings as well. I think it's right now a 2-horse race, but there's plenty of time to go, plenty of races to go where a lot can happen.
In the limited late models, a record-tying 11th different winner for the division in the division's 20th season. And finally, the defending champ is back in victory lane in Jeremy Lavoie.
And finally, he can tell us to shut up about him not winning all year. Yeah, it's just a matter of time. We said it week in and week out. He started up front, but he's had a fast car in the last month and a half. We've seen him up in the podium. Just got to stay up front for all 20 laps, and he did so. He had a fast car. Now we'll see how he does after that, because he has closed in on the top 2 in points in Devin Jensick and Matt Clement, who's our point leader. So Lavoie's going for wins, but he has quietly backed his way into the championship battle. So as much as he hasn't won this year up until last Friday, don't count out the 6. Never count out the 6, because he's always there in the end, whether it's 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 6th. He always finishes, except for a couple of DNFs earlier in the year. But you know what? No one's perfect. Lavoie's in it. It's a 3-horse race. Even Rich Hammond back and forth, you can't really count him out because, again, 1 week you're a hero, 1 week you're in the back half of the top 10 just because this field is so tight. You got to be on it. Now, with 1 month left in the season, you got to be perfect if you want to get that title if you're the top 4 in points.
Rich Hammond, a former champion. Jeremy Lavoie, a 3-time champion and also last year's champion in the limited late models. In the street stocks, 4 drivers, actually the top 6 are within 50 points, 44 among the top 6. All eyes, though, on the front 4. They have put on a great show week in and week out. And last week it was Travis Downey back in victory lane for the 2nd time.
It was Travis versus Travis, Downey versus Haidar. In the last couple laps, Haidar tried the outside, gave Downey a little tap on the final lap, but Downey did what he could do to hold off Haidar, and it worked out, getting his 2nd win of the year. The previous times those two battled, Haidar definitely had the upper hand and pulled away. This time, Downey was able to hold him off. So that 42 team, they found something to at least keep up with the 11 on a more consistent basis. That's win number 2, as you mentioned. Tightens the point battle a bit. He's only 6 points behind Tyler Trott now. Downey, I'm talking about. Top 4, top 6 within 44 points. Amazing. You never know what can happen in this division. This Friday, tomorrow night, you can't predict. Yes, Haidar is going to be fast. You know he's going to be the one to watch because he's the fastest week in and week out. But look what's happened. He's won 8 times, but he's also DNF'd a bunch of times as well. So you got to see what happens when we get to lap 20. Just because you're the fastest car does not mean it's a given. No one's going to give you anything in the street stocks.
And still 4th in the championship standings, even with the 2nd place finish last week. That's how tight it is, and that's how much those couple of cut tires and DNFs really hurt that 11 team. I think he has enough time, though, to get back up to the front.
He does. He does have enough time, but you can't keep DNFing. And it's just the minor things that happen that take you out. So that's why guys like Lafayette and Aslan, who don't have win. Well, Lafayette has 2. Aslan hasn't had a win yet, but those 2 have been consistently top 10. They haven't had as many DNFs as Haidar has had. Even Jason Raymond in 6th. He's not always fighting for the win, but he is finishing most of the time, and that's just half the battle. So you got 5-6 weeks to go. You got to finish, and you got to keep it clean.
It's going to be fun to watch and see how that develops over the next month or so here on Friday nights for the Street Stocks. It's going to be a very busy night of racing, including the big wheels for the kids here on the front straightaway, twin SK Light Modified features, all of the other weekly divisions on tap, part of Maybury Material Handling Back to SKool Kids Night here at the Stafford Motor Speedway, all getting underway at 6 o'clock. And if you can't be here, you can tune us in on Flow Racing.